Hi everyone, this is Hana. Recently, one of my subscribers asked me a question. Hana, can you talk about English education in Korea? So today, I want to talk about that, about our obsession with English, and why we are so ashamed of our own tongues. Let's start with the scene. The studio of NBC's popular talk show, Late Night with Seth Meyers. 2 weeks ago, Korean actor Lee Byung-hun was sitting on the couch. He was there to promote Park Chan-wook's new film, No Other Choice. Under the bright lights, he looked relaxed. He leaned back comfortably. He joked with the host, Seth Meyers. The audience laughed. In the moment, there was no language barrier. American viewers and critics praised him. They didn't care about his grammar. They loved his attitude, his charm, and his insight into the movie. But when I looked at the reaction in Korea, I felt a strange disconnect. In Korean online communities, the comments were cold. They were cynical. His pronunciation is worse than I thought. Oh, he's a word star, but he sounds too Korean. His accent is clunky. I'm disappointed. This is not just a malicious comment. This is a symptom of a serious disease in Korean society. The native English speakers didn't feel uncomfortable, but Koreans who shared the same nationality were ashamed of his accent. They were judging him with a sharp knife. It is a strange irony. Why are we so ashamed of our English? Why do we hate our own accent? Today, I want to explore the root of this shame, and I want to tell you how I broke free from this prison. But before we dive in, I want to make one thing clear. Of course, the story I'm about to tell does not apply to every single Korean. So please do not take this personally or get upset. I'm simply discussing an objectively proven social phenomenon through my own perspective. Just as you have the right to your own independent opinion, please recognize that my opinion is valid too. Remember, to be respected, you must first respect others. I have seen this scene before. Years ago, Ban Ki-moon became the UN Secretary General. When he gave his acceptance speech, Korean society reacted the same way. Linguists did an interesting experiment. They played Ban Ki-moon's speech to two groups. The first group was native English speaker. They praised him. He uses high-level vocabulary. His logic is perfect. The second group was Korean. They gave him the lowest score. His pronunciation is countrified. It sounds stiff and awkward. Why is there such a huge gap? Why do Koreans obsess over the shell rather than the message? Welcome to the English Republic. South Korea spends over 10 trillion won, that's about 7 billion US dollars, on private English education every year. In Korea, English is not just a subject, it is a war. Parents spend the most money on English among all subjects. The tragedy starts early. Have you heard of 4-year-old exam? In Korea, children as young as 4 take entrance exams for English kindergartens. To pass this test, they get private tutoring. The tuition for these kindergartens is twice as expensive as a university tuition. When they become high school students, it gets worse. They solve English reading questions for the university entrance exam. These questions are notoriously difficult. Even native speakers or teachers in the UK and US shake their heads and say, I don't understand what this means. But Korean students stay up all night solving them. We invest the national energy, time, and money into this language. But the result is tragic. The adult English market is huge in Korea too. It is estimated to be about $2 to $3 billion. In the past, people studied for the test scores like TOEIC. Now they buy apps to learn speaking. This proves one thing. There are so many adults who spend their whole life studying English but still cannot hold a natural conversation. We see this often in Korea. Elite employees at big companies. They have perfect test scores. They went to language school abroad. But when a foreigner client enters the meeting room, they became silent. This is not because they are incompetent. It is because of the definition of English in Korea. French sociologist Pierre Bourdieu said, language is capital. In Korea, English is not a tool for communication. It is a cultural capital to distinguish class. English is a test you must not fail. It is an ID card that proves your intelligence and social status. We are terrified. If my pronunciation is bad, they will judge me. If my grammar is wrong, my class will drop. This fear has turned Korea into a giant prison of silent English. We didn't learn how to speak. We learned how to judge and eliminate each other using English. Where does this pathological perfectionism come from? If we dig up the roots, we meet our painful history. After liberation from Japan, the US military government came in. In modern Korea history, English was power. English was survivor. The few who spoke English held power. The majority who didn't were left behind. During this process, a deep colonial mentality was engraved in our minds. Professor Joseph Song-yul Park at the National University of Singapore explains this well. He calls it the mechanism of self-deprecation. Koreans set the standard of English to an imaginary, perfect being, the perfect white American. Since that standard is impossible to reach, our English is always fake or not enough. The funny thing is, the strict rule applies only to us Koreans. When a white person speaks broken Korean, we applaud them. Oh, you are trying to learn our language. That is so cute. Your mistakes are adorable. But if a Korean speaks English with a Korean accent, we attack them. You are embarrassing our country. This is internalized Orientalism. White people are guests or masters, so we are generous to them. But we position ourselves as the ones being evaluated. So we are harsh to ourselves. Unconsciously, we dream of becoming honorably whites. We think if I have a perfect butter-like accent, I can overcome my race, I can join their mainstream society. But we need to ask ourselves, does the world really want honorary whites? Look at the animation movie K-pop Demon Hunters or the success of BTS. Why did the world go crazy for them? Was it their English? No. In fact, some members of BTS confidently spoke Korean even on US talk shows. The world loved their unique identity. They didn't try to fit into Western standards. They showed their flaws, their struggles, and their unique culture as it is. The world reacted to their real story, the most Korean accent, the most Korean emotion. That imperfection becomes their strength. They want authentic stories, not perfect grammar. I learned this truth not in a library, but in the ocean. I'm a native Korean. I was born and raised in Korea. I never went to an international school. I never lived abroad as a student. My English teacher were British rock bands, Hollywood movies, and pop songs. 10 years ago, I decided to become a scuba dive instructor abroad. Everyone around me was worried. Oh, Hana, you are Korean. How can you teach Westerns in English? If there is an accident, you will be in trouble. Surprisingly, the people who scared me were all Koreans with high English scores. But my British boss and American colleagues were cool. They looked at my resume and said, "Your English fine. It's fine for communication. No problem at all. The important thing is, can you teach diving well?" That hit me. For them, language was not a scorecard to grade me. It was just a tool to deliver information. Diving is a sport where lives are at risk. If you lose your regulator underwater, you die. In that desperate environment, fancy grammar or a native accent was useless. What really mattered was looking into the student's eyes, giving them confidence. "I will protect you, trust me." No one died underwater because I made a grammar mistake. But if I had stayed silent because I was looking for the perfect word, someone could have been in danger. Purpose was more important than perfection. Survival came before grammar. One day after diving, I was having a beer with my British friend. I threw a joke with a bone in it. "You guys are so lucky. You only speak English and the whole world understands you." My friend smiled wryly and answered, "That's why we don't try to understand other cultures. That is our biggest weakness and shame." Hearing his cynical confession, I felt a strange liberation. Of course, sometimes native speakers pointed out my pronunciation, accent, or grammar. But I thought, my accent and pronunciation are awkward. Okay, my grammar is broken. That is not something to be ashamed of. It is a badge of intellect. It proves that I struggle to understand a language and culture that is not my own. My clumsy English contained a wider world than their comfortable fluency. I was crossing a border to reach them. That effort itself was beautiful. There was a decisive moment when I truly understand the essence of language. I met a student from Spain. He was deaf. On land, during the theory session, he couldn't understand me without sign language translation. To get a dive license, he had to pass a written exam. I sweated hard trying to explain physics and physiology terms to him. I was the one with the voice, the powerful one. He was the weak one. But the moment we jumped in the water, the world turned upside down. Underwater, no one can speak. It is a word of silence. We communicate only with hand signals and eyes. I lost my words. I was clumsy, but he was different. He had lived his whole life communicating non-verbally. Underwater, he was the freest leader. He understood my worries just by looking at my eyes. He comforted other divers with elegant hand gestures. Communication scholar Albert Moravian proposed a famous rule. In communication, verbal content is only 7%. The other 93% is nonverbal, tone, attitude, eyes. The ocean with my Spanish friend was a giant lab proving this rule. What we shared underwater was not English words. It was a deep empathy. I trust you, we are connected. When we came back to the surface and took off our gear, we looked at each other and smiled. I haven't spoken a single word of English, but I was sure we had the most perfect conversation. Technology is evolving fast. AI translates in real time. We no longer need to suffer to learn mechanical language. Now, what we need to learn is not vocabulary or grammar. It is the language of the heart. To understand and empathize with the people from other worlds. Let's go back to actor Lee Byung-hun. I want to ask the people who laughed at his accent. Why do you learn English? To look like a native speaker and get approval? or to reach out to someone different and become friends. English with a Korean accent is not shameful. It is a proud declaration. I'm Korean and I want to talk to you with my identity. True conversation begins when we take off the mask and speak with your own face. We Koreans need to be more generous to ourselves. We need to end this sad comedy of spending billions but staying silent. It's okay not to be perfect. It's okay to make mistakes. Language is not a weapon to judge others. It is the most beautiful tool humans invented to understand loneliness and offer a warm handshake. So please don't be scared. Speak your story in your own rough accent. Look at me. I know you are not listening to me right now because my English is perfect. The world doesn't want to hear your grammar. The world wants to hear your story. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you have any thoughts about language barriers or your own story, let me know in the comments down below. If this video resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Welcome to Hana's Island. You're safe here now. I will see you soon. Take care. Bye.